All right, welcome to Action Network Live. This is the most exciting window in all of sports. We finally get to talk about it. It's when people are locking their lineups, it's when people are making their bets. Lines in sports books would theoretically be out the door. Instead, people are jamming on their computers and they are making their bets. That's what makes today so great. We are going to have a hold your nose and bet it, because that's what we're all diving in on. Bet coming up in a few minutes, because you will get no hot air analysis on this show. You will get no heartfelt stories on this show. You are only going to get Matthew Friedman, Sean Corner, Chris Raybon, Katie Rich Creek, and with the news, you can use Mr. Darren Ravel, who's talking to bookmakers, looking in our app. Darren, what is the action you can tell us right now?
Well, first of all, I loved PJ Walsh saying that it was overreaction season
PJ
because
Walsh, one of our editors, overreaction season, because it is. Look, this is like the buy low, sell high week, right? Like Colin Wilson and Stuckey talked about it on their Action Network podcast, and Raybon, who's joining us, and Stuckey talked about it in their podcast. Buy low, sell high week. Overreact to the teams that won, overreact to the teams that lost in week one. Darren, you're dressed like a wig. Explain to us what's going on.
with the wig, just fade Ravel this week. I got Seattle -4 against the Patriots, and
Points bet promo.
points bet promo. They'll pump up the Patriots for you. And if I lose, you win your money, and I have to ride a actual horse like Paul Revere and scream the Patriots are coming. So I figured, since I'm not going to have to do that, I might as well get some use out of the $9.95 Expensify that I'm going to charge you, and use the wig. Anyway, back to the what you were talking about. It's amazing to see, and I know this has happened. This is not unprecedented, but the favorites are so loved. It's like one of those things where, like, you're like, this is so square and so ridiculous that people are going to get rolled today. Let me tell you about the most bet on teams. So this is from BetMGM. It's the Chiefs, -8.5, the 49ers, the Bills, the Seahawks, and the Steelers, all prohibitive favorites. But the money, Chad, that's coming in on some of these teams and how lopsided it is ridiculous. And as you taught me last year, the lines aren't moving, which means the bookmakers are saying, come on, we'll take it.
Did I lose you there? Oh, no, I thought I lost you there. All right. So who are the heavy favorites right now? There's
Okay,
a
so
lot of action on that.
right. So Chiefs, 98% of the money at William Hill is on the Chiefs. The Bills, 95% of the money. It's like the Dolphins lost 20-11, but they could have won. I mean, they certainly could have covered last week. And then the Cowboys, 90% of the money is on them against the Falcons at PointsBet, 90% of the money on the Packers, 90% of the money on the 49ers. So again, huge lopsided favorites.
Uh, we got to talk about Tom Brady. We got to talk about the Bucks. As you mentioned, PJ Walsh not only coined this overreaction season, but he had a story. Our users love nothing more than weather. There is heavy winds in Tampa. What are people doing with the Bucks?
That's one of these two games, by the way, the Bucks Carolina, where people are like, I don't know what to do. Talk to one book, they're like 55% Bucks. Another book, 55%. This is one right in the middle. People don't know what to do with Brady. They know that obviously he has Gronk and has Fournette, but obviously they lost by 11 points to the Saints. So the only indicator we really have is on the big bets on the Bucks. One guy's put 49,400 bucks on the Bucks money line to win 13,000. So that person is certainly confident.
All right, Darren, you will have break-in privileges throughout the show. Any news coming up, just raise your hand, start talking. Right now, I want to get to Katie Rich Creek, because you guys don't lie. We know what you're thinking. We know what you want, because you are telling us. The internet knows everything about you. Katie Rich Creek is going to tell you what you're most interested in right now. Katie.
Yeah. So speaking of big favorites, people are interested in what the biggest edges are for this week. And one of those edges, as outlined by our PJ Walsh, who Darren already mentioned, is the Chargers plus 8.5. We have a sharp and model signal on that game and on that spread. So you can read more about that on our site right now. But as we get, we're less than 2 hours out from the first wave of kickoffs, people just want to know what they should be betting. So everybody's eating up our staff bets piece right now, which is leading our site. So go get those 10 picks right now.
All right, Katie, you also have break-in privileges if anything is happening, but you're going to come back later because we do have your start sit questions from viewers, from users, for Friedman, for Corner, for Raybon. You're going to take us through that. But mostly, like you said, people want picks. We got hold your nose picks. Like there is one team that Raybon is on. There's one team that Corner is on. Corner who looks like he needs to show us proof of life because he might be held hostage somewhere in a hole in the ground, God knows where. Raybon, you start, and I know I'm not going to like it, but tell me what you're thinking.
Yeah, so I really like the New York Giants this week.
No!
I know, right? It's plus 5.5. I actually bought it up to 6 at minus 115. I would recommend if people can get that, that's a key number. But you look at the Chicago Bears and they won and they came from behind and they were playing horribly for 3 quarters. And so you have, probably some lazy overreactions, with the Bears. Okay, they won, they're the better team. But the Giants, watching both of those games, played a lot more competitively against a far superior team in the Pittsburgh Steelers, had some bad breaks, had a couple of long drives that were really promising, and they're going to give the Bears some problems. They lost by 5 to the Bears last season. I think the Giants have gotten better. I don't know if the Bears have gotten all that much better. I think they were just kind of had a bad luck year last year, but this is a perfect spot, in my opinion, to back the ugly dog in the New York Giants. So I think we'll be relatively competitive all season long.
All right. So look, I don't disagree with you. The Giants plus 5.5, plus 6, like they were a Daniel Jones interception at the end of that first half, probably from making it a much more competitive game, at least having a better chance to cover that game. I know Corner's going to take it one step further. But first, let's go to your other pick that you're thinking about.
Yeah, so I'm still on this 49ers and Jets under 41.5. I bet it at 43.5, would bet it down to 41.5. Listen, you have for the 49ers, George Kittle out, Deebo Samuel still out. You have, they're breaking in a new guard. They are without their top center. Their backup centers banged up. And then you have the Jets on the other side. Their best 2 offensive players, Le'Veon Bell out, Jamison Crowder out. So San Francisco is going to play close to the vest. This is a game they're traveling across the country. And then, the Jets aren't going to be equipped to kind of force a shootout. So if you're talking about a total of 41 that you could still win that bet, like that would be 3 touchdowns and a field goal for the Niners and 2 touchdowns and a field goal for the Jets. Can you really see those 2 teams combining for that many scores? I don't.
No, that is like a no-brainer. Under that has been one that has been steaming down all week. Like you mentioned, it's through 43. It's going down to 41 probably before kickoff. Corner, can you prove to us that it is the actual day that you are coming to us live? And can you explain to me why you're taking the Giants even a step further than Raybon is? You're not just talking about the spread.
Yeah, I'm taking a stab on the money line. I was able to get it at plus 210, but it's usually plus 200 at most books. But I think I agree with Raybon. And I'm taking a step further because, you have a game featuring Daniel Jones versus Mitch Trubisky. So there's going to be way more variance than your typical football game. So when that happens, I like to actually take a swing on the underdog on the money line because I just don't see the spread coming in play as much here. So I like the Giants money line. And I do agree with Raybon's undertake on the Niners and Jets. That's why I took it earlier at 43.5. But again, I think 41.5 is still a bit too high. I'd probably bet it down to 40 at this point.
All right. Everybody knows that last night Ed Reed was trending, and this morning Ed Reed was trending on Twitter. Darren, go ahead.
Beep, 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 beep. We just had a move by FanDuel to now bring the Jaguars to +7. As people know, the Jaguars began as an 11-point dog against the Titans. And really all night you were getting 7.5, but you had to pay for it. So no one was really moving it. And now that half point has come down on FanDuel. Still, if you want that half point for 7.5, you can find it, but at -120 or more.
This was the biggest debate Simon Hunter, professional bettor Simon Hunter, and I had this morning before we put our picks in for our DraftKings Pro Football Pick'em National Championship contest, where we went 5-5-0 last week. This was the biggest debate of the day that we had. We decided not to go with the Titans. I love the Titans in this spot. I don't know, Corner, if you feel that way. We can go off script here for a second, but the Titans at -7. Are you kidding me? Against a Jaguars team that is so overvalued right now? Like, there's too much love coming in the Jaguars. Give me the Titans -7.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I actually prefer the under on this game. I'm going to go over that in my perfect portfolio, but this is absolutely a Derrick Henry game, and the Titans should dominate time possession here for sure.
All right, so before Darren broke in, I was saying that you are like you are to player prop betting what Ed Reed is to chief of staffing, and anyone who was watching Twitter this morning understands what I'm talking about. Give me some player props, because when you posted your player prop story this morning, our Google Analytics blew up.
Nice. Yeah. So the first prop I want to go over is Justin Jefferson over 18.5 receiving yards on FanDuel. And it was 10 minutes after I posted this, it moved up to 24.5. I still think there's value there. I would bet this up to 34.5. It is that bad of a line right now. I've noticed we've been able to take the over in a lot of these first round rookies receivers this year. For some reason, the market's been undervaluing them. So I love this bet. He ran around on 84% of Cousins dropbacks last week. And you'd expect him to only improve as the season goes on. This Vikings-Colts game should be a shootout. So, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't see 5 to 6 targets at least here. So I'd still smash the over on the 24.5. Another bet I really love is Marquise Brown, over 49.5 receiving yards over at BetMGM. He was able to post 101 receiving yards last week in a blowout. This game against the Texans should be a lot closer. So, he ran around 80% of Lamar Jackson's dropbacks in week 1. I don't see why that shouldn't go up this week. I think he'll easily go over this. I would bet this up to 60.5. And the other one I wanted to touch on was Tyler Higbee, under 52.5 receiving yards. This is also at BetMGM. Week 1 wasn't too promising for him. Last year, he benefited towards the end when the Rams would run a ton of 2 tight end sets, and they would take Cooper Kupp off the field. So that was it. Higbee was able to dominate target share when that package was on the field. But last week, they didn't take Cooper Kupp off the field. So he has a lot more competition for targets. Gerald Everett, he should be fine after his week 1 back injury. So he should eat into his target share as well. I like his under 52.5 receiving yards if that kind of usage holds this week.
All right.
Thad, real quick.
Oh, go ahead, Katie.
You mentioned that GA was going crazy when Sean tweeted his props piece this morning, and people are still flocking to it from Twitter. He has 7 more picks in that piece.
All right.
So a lot more value where that came from.
Freeman, what did you hit? Like 67% of your player prop picks last year? I mean, it was something absolutely ridiculous. So people should go check that out. Freeman, you were shaking your head aggressively when Sean was talking about Justin Jefferson. You have some matchups you want to talk about. Do you want to weigh in affirmatively on Jefferson as well? People were coming up on like 100 minutes before kickoff, which means now is the most exciting time in all of sports.
Yeah, I'm with Sean on the over with the Jefferson prop. And big picture, he mentioned with some of these first round rookie wide receivers, there's value on the over. And I would say that extends also to like rookie running backs, rookie quarterbacks. I think the books in general, you want to bet unders, but they seem to misprice rookies and really don't take into account the immediate impact that they're going to have. So I think with rookies, there tends to be a little value on the over. So I'm with Sean there. The big matchup, though, that I really like for this week has to do with Juju Smith-Schuster going against an undrafted rookie cornerback playing in the slot. Isang Bassi. And this is a total mismatch. Juju is going to go off. His prop right now is 59.5. We have that at 65. I personally have that projected for closer to 75, not to like insult the odds maker and his projections, but I just think this is a smash matchup, and Juju is going to go off. We saw what he did last week on just 6 targets. He had 69 yards. When he was healthy 2 years ago, he had 1,400 yards for the season. And I mean, AJ Boye, the number 1 cornerback for the Denver Broncos, he's out. So this is just a total smash play for Juju. Generally, I like unders, but when I see a matchup like this, I have to bet the over on it. So absolutely love Juju over 59.5 yards.
All right. So you say you love to bang the unders, and yet the other player prop that you love, and the guy, this is when, like, you know, the pre-show was so much fun, and it's when everyone's geeking out because you guys were making inside jokes about how people were going to tilt if this guy who you're about to mention ends up being the number 1 receiver, and only fantasy and betting geeks would laugh at this inside joke. So explain yourself.
I don't think it was really much of an inside joke, but we're talking about DeAndre Hopkins. And, you know, he, among, you know, people who really dig into the numbers, was someone that we were kind of fading this year. He was going routinely around the number 5 wide receiver spot in drafts. A lot of us thought that was too high because we just didn't think that he would get the target volume this year that he had in previous seasons with the Texans. Of course, we saw what happened in week 1 when he was targeted at, you know, a near league high rate and just absolutely dominated. And if he gets volume like that, I mean, he's got a good chance of being the overall wide receiver 1 this season. I mean, at least a top 3 wide receiver. And you look at the matchup that he has this week, he could continue to get peppered with targets. He's going against 2 cornerbacks and Ronald Darby and Fabian Moreau for Washington on the outside. Both of these guys are outclassed. So wherever he lines up, he's likely to have a matchup that he can exploit. Darby last year was one of the worst cornerbacks in the league. And then Moreau has 3 straight seasons. 3 straight seasons with PFF coverage grades of under 60. So, I mean, this is a total smash for DeAndre Hopkins. Again, I tend to like unders, but when you see a matchup like this, there can be value on the over, and that's what I see here. 5.5 receptions is the number out there in the market. In our prop tool at Fantasy Labs, we have this around 6.5. I personally have this around 6.2. You know, at that point, there's value on it, no matter the way you look at it. So Hopkins, I love the over on this.
Darren, break in.
So 53.5 is the total on the Falcons Cowboys, and books are pretty much giving you almost also minus 105 to go under on 53.5, meaning that it continues to climb, and someone has put in a bet at BetMGM 110,000 to win 100 on the over of 53.5. So that number, which is the largest number we've seen in any total, is continuing to climb.
Raybon, corner, Friedman, again, I'm going off script here, but anyone have a strong opinion on the Falcons Cowboys over right now, 53.5?
I mean, in terms of fantasy, I love all the players in that game. Get as many of those guys into your DFS lineups as you can.
Yeah, I mean, I want to bet the over on this game because I think it's going to be a shootout. But if Tyron Smith is out, I don't know if the Cowboys are going to be a little more conservative. I think if they get out to an early lead, I think it could be a heavy Zeke game. So that's where I think the path would be for the under here. But yeah, I just love the fantasy potential. I kind of want to root for points, so I'm staying away from the under for now.
Yeah, Dak's numbers without Tyron Smith go down substantially. But on the other side, the Cowboys, are going to be without another one of their corners this week. So, there's all the recipe for the over. Atlanta allowed 31 of 35 passing last week with 4 touchdowns to Russell Wilson. But if Tyron's out, I think that would be worth a point or more to the under. That's how important he is to that Cowboys offense.
All right, I am all over the Cowboys in this game. Like, if we're talking about overreaction season, to me, this is overreaction season. Like, the Cowboys not being a bigger favorite in this game is really kind of ludicrous, even with the injuries. Like, I am just not a buyer in any way, shape, or form on the sugar rush stats that the Atlanta Falcons put up. And they are just incapable to me of being competitive in a game until the game is out of reach, and then they can put up some big numbers. So I'm glad to hear that people are coming in on the under in that game. That sounds really exciting. Katie, it's time to do some start sit questions. We asked fans on Twitter to send their start sit questions to Raybon, Friedman, and Sean Corner. Take us away.
So we've got 3 wide receivers, full PPR. First is Michael Gallup. Second, Cooper Kupp. Third, DJ Moore. Pick 2.
I prefer Gallup and Moore. Kupp has a lot of talent, but I'm just a little bit worried about his role within that offense. And I feel pretty confident that Gallup and Moore are going to have more steady target volume.
Yeah, I think it's close. I think it's between Gallup and Kupp, really. I think Moore is the obvious one. I would lean towards Kupp just because I think last week they went away from him, but this week against the Eagles, I think they do go to Kupp a bit more. I think Gallup has a wider range of outcomes. So if I'm an underdog, I'll probably play Gallup. If I'm a favorite, I'd play Kupp.
I have Gallup ranked the highest. I would actually fade Moore. I just think that Bucs defense is very good. I think the game will go under. You guys talked about the wind earlier in the show. So Kupp was on the field, as Sean mentioned, for pretty much every route. So I think last week was just variance. People were worried about his role coming into the season, but this was a guy who was putting up top 10 numbers the last couple of years. I don't think that changes. But I could see it becoming a kind of a slog in that Carolina game. You have Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel, who nearly equaled Moore's target share a week ago.
All right.
We gave conflicting advice here. The one guy I would absolutely not bench is Gallup.
Let's put it this way. All three are great. This is a wonderful decision to have. Many people are not this fortunate. So I don't think you go wrong with either.
Agreed. I just slacked our social editor and asked him who was debating between these 3 wide receivers. Anyways, second question, quarterbacks, Stafford or Wentz?
I go Stafford, but it's very close.
Yeah, I have it neck and neck. I'd probably lean Wentz just because getting Lane Johnson back should help the O-line, so he should have more time. He gets Miles Sanders back. And just Stafford without Kenny Golladay, I'm just downgrading a little bit. If you had Kenny Golladay, I would say Stafford all the way. But I think this week, if you drafted Wentz, this is the kind of week where you'll be able to see some of his upside. So I'd go Wentz.
Yeah, I'm about 5 spots higher on Wentz as well. You look at Stafford, his average depth of target goes down over 2 yards when Golladay is not in the lineup, and that's going to substantially impact his passing yardage.
This is where I'm going to plug that you can parse all of their rankings individually on our site. So further context.
Good plug.
All right,
Good plug, Katie.
Final question. Full PPR. We've got Anthony Miller, Sammy Watkins, or Deshaun Jackson.
Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say it's close between Watkins and Deshaun Jackson. Both players have, a high ceiling and low floor, but I think you got to go with Deshaun Jackson. He should see quite a bit of Jalen Ramsey, but all you need is one big play from Djax. And he should be due after last week. He was on the field quite a bit last week. And as long as he's healthy, you got to play Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, led the league in air yards last week. And Watkins has a very tough matchup this week against Casey Hayward Jr.
Going Watkins, best quarterback. I think Deshaun has a tough matchup too. And Wentz usually leans on Zach Ertz, especially at home. So I'm just not sure that Jackson is going to be targeted as much as we think. And again, the matchup at those Rams corners are still tough.
All right, listen.
Yeah, I got a quick one.
Go ahead, Jared.
We were talking about the Dallas-Atlanta 53.5. William Hill's now moved it to 54, and money's still coming in there.
Very nice. Well, listen, you're going to come up with your final 2-minute wrap up in a minute. But first, we got 90 minutes until games kick off, the early games. We're going to go through everybody's perfect portfolio. This is what the people want. Give the people what they want. Raybon, you go first.
All right, so we talked about the under in the 49ers. We talked about the Giants. I'm also betting on the Houston Texans at 7.5. I think that line is is too large for that game. I think, you look at Deshaun Watson, he's 12-6 in his career as an underdog, winning 67% of the time. But I love that game. And also just want to note to people, Tyron Smith just got ruled out for the Dallas Cowboys. So I actually think there would be value on the under in that spot. So that's another note with people rising. And then for DFS, I love Derrick Henry in this spot, 109.5 yards and 1.2 touchdowns per game as a favorite. So rolling with him in DFS. And then Zach Ertz, I mentioned him earlier, but his receiving yardage, it's the line is 46.5. He's been over that in 7 of 8 home games last season, 24 of 30 since 2016. He averages 75 yards per game at home and 48 on the road. This is a spot where I expect Carson Wentz to lean on him after a rough go targeting some of the newer faces on the Eagles.
Here's what I love. Not only are we getting breaking news about Tyron Smith, but if you're in the Action Network app, you can follow everybody's picks. Everyone puts in what they're doing at all times, right? And so about 10 o'clock this morning, my phone started lighting up with alerts from everybody. Zach Ertz over, Zach Ertz over, Zach Ertz over. It's like all of a sudden the run on Zach Ertz was happening. So I'm glad you brought him up, Raybon. Sean Corner, you're next. Give me your perfect portfolio. People can take away.
So I'm going with the Jags Titans under 44.5. I think this is going to be a strong Derrick Henry game, as the Titans are a 7.5 point favorite. The Titans ran the ball at a 61% rate when leading last year, which is by far the highest in the NFL, even more than the Ravens. So I expect them to kill the clock. Even when the Jaguars have the ball and they're trailing, they don't really throw as much and they're a little bit more conservative. So this game's going to play towards the under, especially since the Titans are going to be without A.J. Brown. And Corey Davis is playing through a hammy issue. I think they'll lean on Derrick Henry and even Adam Humphries in the short passing game this week. So that's why I also like, correlating this with Adam Humphries over 3.5 receptions. It was minus 122 at FanDuel last time I checked. I think he could lead the team in targets this week. He has a very high floor in this market. I think I would set this line closer to 4.5. So I would bet this up to minus 160. And I think that plays into the under as well.
I don't like correlating the under with what I love, which is the Titans -7. So I totally get what you're saying. Friedman, tell me what you're thinking.
All right, if you look at DraftKings Sportsbook, they have some player props that have to do with fantasy points, and I absolutely love these props. The one I like the most is Tom Brady under 22.5 DraftKings points. Within our Fantasy Labs models, we have this closer to 20. In my personal projections, I have it closer to 19. The Panthers are most exploitable via the ground game. There is no Chris Godwin in this game because of concussion concerns. The Bucs might use Leonard Fournette a little bit more. So I think this could be a game in which Brady's still learning that offense, just hands off a little bit more than people anticipate. So I would take the under Tom Brady 22.5 DraftKings points. And then I hate to do this, I have to go with my Dallas Cowboys, favored by 3.5, 4, depending on the sports book. Mike McCarthy as a home favorite, 53, 34, and 4 against the spread. Atlanta's pass defense is one of the worst in the league. As Raybon mentioned earlier, we saw them get shredded last week. And Dan Quinn, I mean, for me, this is the kicker. Dan Quinn is one of the NFL's worst against the spread coaches over the past 5 years, especially if you take out the Shanahan-driven 2016 season. Dan Quinn is 26-39 against the spread. Even with Tyron Smith out at left tackle, I think the Falcons are really just defenseless to stop the Cowboys offensively. So I'm leaning Cowboys in this game. Honestly, I'm shocked that it went down from 6.5 to where we are now. I thought it should have moved up, but here we are.
I'm with you, brother, in a big, big way. Darren Ravel, you're furiously typing away. Take us home. What's the latest? Break it down. Wrap it up.
Giants are down to 5 in some books. So it was 5.5. Obviously, we've said Corner says he loved them. Maybe money line play down to plus 194, from plus 210 around, and down to plus 5 against the Bears. So that's the move. And I'd also say the interesting thing with Corner saying that he liked the under on the Jacksonville Titans game. That is actually the most overplayed over at William Hill. 91% of the money's on the over.
All right, folks, this has been Action Network Live. You've got all the picks, you got all the lineups, you got all your questions answered, you got all the news, even news breaking while the show was on. We got about 85 minutes till games kick off. Go lock everything in. Thanks for joining us.